Welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of The View with Vertex. We're kicking off season 2 in a big way. I've got two very important guests on from the Lighthouse charity and Ian's business, Training in Mind. Ian, Hines, former scaffolder of Linden.
That's right.
And Samantha, now business development for Training in Mind. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. Yeah, thanks for having us.
And it's really nice to be recording again because I say it's season 2 and we wanted to kick it off in a big way.
Well done, season 2, mate.
It's season 2.5.
Okay.
In a sense, because we did do the scaffolding. I don't know if you saw it. We did do the Scaffolding World Championships over in.
I saw that. Yeah, I did watch that. Yeah, I wondered how did that go?
That's amazing.
I bet it was.
Yeah. If you get a chance, it's a great. And I mean, even for the stuff that you're doing now, it'd be a great. And everyone speaks English, which is brilliant.
Was it Prague or something?
Lithuania.
Yeah. I'm definitely on that one next year, mate.
But yeah, it's a great place to sort of spread the message, get the name of the Lighthouse charity and of Training in Mind out there. Yeah, definitely a great place to go.
Yeah, so I mean, what sort of things are they doing now? I don't think it. Because I remember being said before about people topping up and stuff like that.
It's what we've got this sort of like old school these memories and stories of.
I'm part of the old school,
the Scaffold Olympics. It's not
Scaffold Olympics.
It's not like that where there's like a top. Apparently, there used to be like a topping out competition and how many doubles can you put on a tube and stand up. It's not like that. It's actually they get a drawing and they have to go and put that scaffold up against the clock. They only get to see it on the day. And they get penalised. They get time penalties for any sort of non-compliance. So they do something, they'll clip on where they should.
So no tool tearing.
So you've got health and safety in mind.
Yes, yeah. There has to be sort of safety.
That sounds really interesting.
It's wicked, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I know we've got important stuff to talk about. So your background. Now, I was speaking off camera. I thought that you'd been into scaffolding first and then discovered, the mental health awareness training. It kind of goes a bit further back from that, doesn't it? So
yeah, I think obviously when we're talking off camera, I think my story starts 30 years ago, really, when I went through a trauma of losing someone quite close to me, and didn't talk about it, kept it inside, to the point where actually when we buried this particular person, I was back at work on the afternoon because the stigma that was attached to, you didn't ask for help then, did you? A man was a man, and that was the way it was. And I buried that trauma and pushed it down. And then what happened was, further on, I experimented with drugs and experimented with heroin. And then when I first took heroin, the pain went away for a while of this loss that I was feeling. Which led to me becoming addicted to heroin. And then I had a 7-year, what I call love affair with heroin, essentially.
7 years is a long time as well, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It went to the darkest places. I'm talking squats, intravenous using. I was lucky to get out without any sort of viruses or anything like that because, that's what was happening. But, and obviously put me on the road to crime, essentially. And what happened then was I was arrested in 98 and taken straight to Windsor Green, where I spent 16 months for robbery and fighting. And whilst in Windsor Green, sort of didn't really get any education on addiction, but experienced a little bit of talking therapy. So then when I came out of prison, I actually went into a rehab. Hope House in Weston, what a place. It's just funded by housing benefit, right? And it was spit at sawdust, believe me. There's holes in the carpet, all that sort of stuff. But
you find this often with these community centres as well, that it's
it was amazing.
Unfortunately, woefully underfunded, I'd say.
But what happened in the end is because it got regulated, it wasn't given the right size, so because it's termed abusive. And anyway, it's a whole different story. But they shut it down, which is a shame. But then I did experience talking therapy to a big level, whereas in a group setting and a one-to-one setting, my counsellor was a guy called Patrick, and I learnt the magic of talking about what's going on for you, about getting it out, and I fell in love with counselling. So I wanted to be a counsellor. Now, bearing in mind, I'm sort of, I don't know what age I am there, sort of 28, whatever it is by this time, and I'm out in the big wide world, and I want to try and be a counsellor. And believe me, to try and be a counsellor, to learn to be a counsellor, it's not a short thing. I took level 2, level 3, then went to diploma. Now, diploma was going there twice a week, 2 nights a week, 3 hours a time for 2 years. In the last year, you have to do 120 hours voluntary counselling with like communities and what have you. And I had to pay for it all myself, you know, and there's a lot of work to be done. And it does, I suppose it does weed out the people that aren't really in love with it, to be fair. But
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, definitely. And then what I found was that I fell out of love with it a bit, because I found the only people that was making any sort of money in counselling was the people in counselling, i.e. supervisors or trainers. You know, trying to make money as a counsellor was hard. You know, you're not going to make a decent living until you're actually well known. But to fund that, what I decided to do is I had what I call family, who had a scaffolding business, which was the Lynches, Paddy and Tommy Lynch, and Robert Lynch was running it at the time. So I thought, I'll go and do a bit of scaffolding, make a few quid. That'll pay for me to do my courses. Bit of blind faith, just become a counsellor. As I say, because it took me 8 years to get there, where I eventually got to postgrad level of university. I started my master's while I'm at Linden's, yeah. And 8 years down the line, I qualified. 2008, I qualified as a counsellor, yeah. But within those 8 years, and then sort of after, is look, you're a scaffolder yourself. You know, banter was massive, right? And some of the stuff that got said on site was pretty horrific, but it's how you got through your day.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism, isn't it? I think, you know, it's that sort of dark humour that gets us through sometimes.
Exactly, dark humour. And I'm not like the police have it, you know, the forces have it. We all have dark humour, stuff you say that we wouldn't say normally. So people don't tend to get vulnerable at any point at all, because you'd be afraid of somebody taking that and saying it to you. You know, so, imagine a scaffolder saying, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit depressed." How's that going to go down on site? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm certainly more so. You know, 2008. You know, there was not this conversation happening around mental health.
Not at all.
Far more of a stigma attached.
Exactly, and stigma's the word. And so, but what I was finding was, I was going. A lot of guys come to me and saying, "You do that counselling stuff, don't you?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I do. Yeah, okay. I've got a mate who's going through this, like split with his missus, or I've got a mate who's going through that. Have you got any advice I could give them?" And I'd give them some advice and some guidance, phone numbers, or said, maybe try this or try that. And you'd find that a few weeks later, they'd come back to me and say, "Just want to say to you, thanks for that advice. It really, really worked. By the way, it was me." And I'd be like, "Really?" I didn't, you know, obviously knowing it was them. But what I did find is that most people who get touched by that sort of guidance and help want to give a bit back. And what I thought is, how can I try and create something? Do you know what I mean? And I was getting further up in Linden's, so I was getting a better voice, a bigger voice, and I'm trying to push, you know, the mental health support side of stuff. And Robert Lynch, who was in charge at the time, great guy, give me the actual freedom to go and train as a mental health first aid instructor. And we made a commitment, and we said, right, this year we're going to train 20 mental health first aiders within the company. And bearing in mind there's 500 in the company at the time. We hadn't joined with SGB by then. The first year we trained 50, right? And we started to notice that things were getting better and people were talking more, and the mental health conversation was one that was more comfortable to have, you know? And then in that time by then I'm now working as a health and safety manager forward to 2015. I'm also, I was running the yards nationally, doing special projects for Rob, like Common Tower, that sort of stuff. And again, my voice was getting louder, so I was able to push things a bit more. And I trained in everything, you know. At the time, I was working as an appointed person, so I was part of the lifting crew. So I'd write the lift plans. I was health and safety manager. I was running the yards. I was doing this, I was doing that. Also trying to get the mental health team together. And what happened
sounds like a lot of we were talking before, weren't we, plates to spin, a lot of different sort of
plates getting spun, yeah. And the problem is, which is all well and good, but you find that you don't give 100% to everything then, do you? You know, you
get I think, you know, and that's business and that's management, and that's, you know, when you get to these senior levels, you do sort of sometimes bite off more than you can chew, and you do inevitably get, you know, do a lot of, you can end up doing a lot of things, not necessarily badly, but not as bad as you could.
Yeah, you don't give it the attention that maybe you would have liked to, because I was trying to justify that role by doing other roles within the company, you know. And then what happened from then on is one of our service users, which is a guy called Matt Hartle, who won't mind me saying it because this is what he does now for Linden SGB. I'd found out that he was in a bad place and went and saw him and actually asked the question, are you thinking of taking your own life? Right? Now, ask yourself the question, if you feel comfortable doing that, asking somebody face to face, are you thinking of taking your own life? And
it's not an easy question to ask, is it?
And do you know what's even worse? The answer. Because
because I guess when you're asking the question, sometimes you're not necessarily anticipating the answer. Yes, I think a lot of us who are asking that question are probably thinking that we might have to delve a little bit deeper, and you're just maybe scratching the surface. So to get that sort of point blank, well, actually, yes, I am.
Yeah. Oh, he just said to me, yeah, and I was terrified. Bearing in mind, I was at psychotherapy level, BACP registered, and I was terrified. I thought, well, what do I do here? And what we did, and you know, hats off to Linden Scaffolding, Robert Lynch at the time. We took him off site, so he wasn't working at height. We got him some counselling. We changed his job role, and we sort of recreated his path to the point where, jumping quite further forward, he became. I trained him as a mental health first aider. He became an instructor, and he still does that now. He still goes out and instructs. What happened with me is I burnt out. So 2023 February, I think it's time of 2022. I just burnt out. I'd had enough. And Linden were good to me. You know, they give me some time off and they paid me and what have you. And I can never say anything more about them than that. Mark Collinson, who I was working for at the time, really looked after me, supported me. But I wanted to do more for mental health. So, long story short, I left Linden's and went to work for the Lighthouse charity. Well, I opened my own company to start delivering counselling.
Mental health first aid.
Training, yeah. And I've been doing it on the side anyway for like SCS and stuff like that. And Dan Elm, I trained a few of their people. But I went and opened my own company. And you know what it's like, it's self-employed and what have you. But I got given the opportunity to go and do a tour for Lighthouse Construction Club in Ireland. And wow. So we drove to Ireland, me and a guy called Andy Bishop, Lee Anderson, Rob Muldoon, and we started off in Cork and we drove down from there all the way down to Dublin, stopping off at sites that had arranged for us to go there, see fields and all that. And we give talks, and the talks would consist of us saying, it's okay not to be okay. And if you ask somebody if they're okay, ask them twice. And try and get the conversation going and say, look, do you know what? I have 4 people, one person's going to be suffering something with a mental health issue. And it's not weak to ask for help, right? And I've watched the magic happen at Lighthouse. And for the first time ever, I saw an organisation do what they said it would do.
The things we were speaking earlier, the things that you've told me about Lighthouse, I just find unbelievable. And we'll get into some of those sort of initiatives and things a little bit later on, I reckon, because I was blown away.
Yeah, to the point where you're going, this can't be right, you know. So for instance, I spoke to one guy, and then he said to me, and this is God's honest truth. He said, I knew you was coming for 2 weeks. He said, for the last 2 weeks, I've been stood every night on a bridge looking over. I was waiting for you to come because he'd split up with his wife, hadn't seen his kids. I was waiting for you to come, and if I was going to get nothing from this, then tonight I was doing it. And we put him in touch with a caseworker. He got a counsellor within a few days. And from what I know, he now is on the road to recovery. He's doing well.
Yeah.
And that happened and happened and happened. And this is in Ireland, right? And we're talking about things like suicide, where there's a massive taboo. Suicide. Let's look at the language around suicide firstly. People still say commit suicide.
It's of course decriminalised. Wasn't not a criminal offence.
1963. Yeah. And even closer now in Ireland. I think it was in the 90s. It was decriminalised. But until 1963, if you took your own life, your family could have its assets seized. Your family.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was terrible things happen. You wouldn't be allowed a burial because it was so taboo and stigmatized that you about taking your own life. Again, decriminalized, and now people can talk about it, but we're losing 18 people a day to suicide, right? Now, for every 4 suicides there are, 3 of them are men. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realise, well, why is it then that women are not as susceptible to actually doing it? We're all going to have our own theories on it, but I think a big one is that they talk.
Yeah,
women talk. So you can actually verbalise how you're feeling rather than keeping it down. And
I think, as well as that, there's traditional roles and responsibilities in family setups, and obviously society is changing. But if you look at traditional gender roles and blokes perhaps being the the breadwinner, or bringing on the baby, whatever you want to call it, that is a lot of pressure and
compounded by a male.
I heard a piece that you did on social media just recently, Ian, about people being made redundant, losing their jobs, and how that makes somebody feel as a breadwinner, as a whatever you would call it, head of the family, having that responsibility sort of taken away from you. You're going to take that on with you. It's going to be a difficult situation to deal with. And I'm not saying that's not the case for a lot of women out there. There's some women in high power, high responsibility jobs, and I'm sure in those scenarios, if they're the sole breadwinner for that family, I think losing their job would be massively difficult for them.
Yeah.
But I think that does play into it. I think that the way men and women traditionally communicate there are definitely differences there, and I think you are right. Women do tend to talk and open up that little bit more. But I think sometimes it's the way men are or feel like they're supposed to be viewed within society. I think that's an issue as well, and perhaps a stigma that we all need to to break down.
Yeah, no, completely right, and it's it's that men have always been viewed as look. Worst word that boils my blood, man up, right? How many times has man up been the last word somebody's took their own life being heard, right? Man up. What does that mean, man up? Do you know what a man is? A man is a guy who goes home and takes care of his family, but and that sort of stuff. But look, it boils my blood to hear the word man up. I can't have it. It's attention seeking and stuff like that. It's time for us now to start going, look, if we're going to start saying that physical health is the same as mental health, right, we've got to address it with the same level of respect. We've got to address it with the same level of respect with language, right? It's not legislation at the moment to have a mental health first aider, but if you've got over 5 people working at your company, you've got to have a physical first aider.
Mm-hmm.
There's
certainly a disparity there, isn't there? Between the two.
There's definitely some what's the word I'm looking for? It's contradictory to say the least. So yeah, getting back to where we were, imagine how it must feel to have to be a man or a woman and go into your partner and say, dress it up how you want, redundancy, mate. You've lost your job. How are you going to feel? How are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that?
Not to mention the fact that for a lot of people, the job's their identity.
Yeah.
It's a massive. There's a massive social aspect to being employed, especially if you've been at a company for a long, long time. It's
I mean, I was there for 23 years, and it was my identity. It was who I was. And don't get me wrong. Now, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, it didn't feel so, but I didn't want to be there.
Yeah, do you know, I've never spoke about this or opened up about this before, but I definitely felt that when I started the scaffolding business. So I was at Simeon. I was, I'd come in quite young to that type of job, to instructing and all the rest of it. I was on a really great career path. I was being very well looked after by Simeon, to be fair. And I was certainly on a path to becoming, are doing great things in that sort of industry. But I always had this thing where I wanted to set up my own business, and I did. And it was a scaffolding business because obviously that's my background, and I got an opportunity and I went at it. But I felt my identity change overnight from being, I'm this person who's got a voice. Maybe that's the reason why I'm doing this now. Do you know what I mean? I was a person who had a voice. I could speak to people on a regular basis. I could help people, assist people. And overnight, it was just taken away. And it was just like, you're just a scaffolder again. Yeah. Not just a scaffolder. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense or any scaffold, but it was like, that identity you've built up is just forget about it. It's so difficult.
Even down like power terms, you before you'd have the power to do this, the power to do that, the power to get a pickup to go there. Couldn't do it now. And it's even little things like that, you could pick up the phone and get something done, and now it's not the case. So what I'm trying to get into is that, and allude to, is that when you do change from being in quite a big position, senior management, and then all of a sudden you're just working for yourself, although it's a great thing, it's a massive upheaval. It's a different world, and it's like I was talking to somebody yesterday, when you're in that self-employed mode, you can't say no to any business because you don't know where it's coming from next.
No, we had that conversation, didn't we?
Yeah, and it's like I can't say no, and am I selling myself too cheap? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And before you know it, you don't know where you're at. I mean, that's a big reason why Sam's on board with me.
I know we've been waffling away here. But yeah, it's obviously Sam's here also, and yeah, I guess that's where you come in. What motivated you to take this challenge on?
Okay, so specifically, I am quite business minded. I love selling, but I have always had a passion for mental health, and I just was waiting for the perfect role for it all to come together for me. So it's a kind of little bit of the opposite for you two. I don't want to be employed. I don't want that kind of senior management role where someone's telling me what to do or someone's expecting me to bring something back. I'm 49 and I've done that for 30 years nearly. So now I want to be able to actually speak my truth, broker conversations and open them up and be able to actually really make a difference. So while what Ian's doing is absolutely amazing, he does need some structure.
Yeah. I think,
that's all I'm here for, really.
We all do. I find this myself. You might have another job.
Yeah.
I've certainly find this myself.
When she says that's all she does, she's brilliant at what she does. And it's like yesterday, we done a presentation at NASC. And look, I did what I did, and then I'm able to leave the room because I was knackered, right? And I'd had enough. But what Sam was able to do was stay behind, collect the information that was required, speak to the people that they need to speak to, and open dialogue with people, rather than, because you know what? Well, it gets a bit sickening after a while when we keep talking the talk and nobody walks the walk.
Yeah, it's the next steps, isn't it?
Yeah, we can talk a great job. Do you know what, mate? I can stand there and talk a great job up, right? Just put it up.
Yeah.
We could stand there and say, well, we're going to scaffold this, that way, blah, blah, blah. But until you actually pull your spanner out and start doing it, you're not doing anything, are you? Do you know what I mean? No. And what Sam's there to do and what Sam's role is to push this forward. Do you know what I mean? And that's what she's good at.
The interesting conversations I was having yesterday was actually drilling down with a couple of CEOs and some health and safety executives, really about the true cost of actually putting on this training and the true cost of not putting it on, and the human cost of it. And for me as well, with my background in recruitment, it is quite crass, but also talking about all of the costs that are incurred with just even finding a person in the first place, finding the scaffolder, then losing them or training them, and then having to replace them. It's all included in the cost. It's not just, do we train or do we not train?
Yeah.
It's so much more of a nuanced conversation than that, and that's what I enjoy doing, having those conversations.
Yeah, I think
with the person that's got to sign off.
Yeah, because I think, unfortunately, I know there's a moral obligation to deliver this type of training and make sure that people are aware of this kind of thing. But there's a financial implication to deliver it, and I think we have to examine that. I think we have to examine, does it make business sense? Because all right, ultimately, worst case scenario, we're losing, so many construction workers annually to suicide. So that's, worst case scenario. But let's expand out on that. How many of them are, the absenteeism? And I know it's so easy to say, and I've been in this situation myself. I've employed scaffolders, and I know what Monday mornings are like, and I have had some scaffolders come in, and I don't want to say play the mental health card because it's such a dangerous statement to make, but I've said, you know, I'm really struggling with mental health, and you know that the reason for that is because they've been on a bender, they've been in a kitchen till 7 o'clock that morning, and it's usually cocaine, and you know that's the reason for it. The truth of the matter is that is a sign, whether we like to admit it or not. And I know so many people watching this. I know we get young viewers and listeners as well say, you know, no, we're just having fun, we're just partying and all the rest of it. Usually, you know, you're substituting for something.
What we do is we work to avoid pain.
Right? Yeah, I guess.
And whatever we're doing, we work to avoid pain. And whether that's going out on a tot or sniffing cocaine or doing everything, you know, that's what it's about. But sort of going back to what you were talking about, which I think is a really important thing, is what does concern me is when it starts. Human nature dictates that people start playing the depression card, the anxiety card, the blah blah blah, and that's the worry that it discounts what's actually got. You know, it discounts the people that actually are suffering. You imagine somebody phoning up on a Monday morning and saying to their, you know, their old school site agent, "Well, I'm experiencing some depression." The first you get is get yourself in here now and get some work. Whereas if they phoned up and said, "Oh, I've got a bad back, can't be proved or disproved," all that sort of stuff, I think we are getting to a point where I would know somebody that's telling the truth or not, and we can start putting things in place. Whereas, you know, if you're saying you've got suicidal ideation, then you need to come off working from height straight away anyway. You know, we need to put you in yards, all that sort of stuff. But it's going to be the next problem we need to deal with. Firstly, we need to deal with if somebody needs help, how do we get it to them? You know what I mean? Because the concern and worrying part about it is nobody knows the help that's out there, such as Lighthouse, such as, you know, there's people like Mates in Mind and as well, but I don't know nothing about them, so I don't work for them, I don't do anything for them, so I can't promote them. All I can do is promote that. Look, when I give a talk at a site and I say to people, ask the question, and they say, "Oh, that's all well and good, but what about when they say, yeah, phone that number?" Because what you'll get is somebody at the end of it and say, "Right, okay, tell them to phone this, tell them to that, blah blah blah, do this, and give them this number to phone, and we'll take the problem away from you." As a first aider, you are just there to contain the problem and pass it on to appropriate care. If you use a physical first aid and you find somebody bleeding, you put some over the top of it. You ain't gonna try and stitch it up. You're just there to contain it.
Or you give CPR. You wouldn't attempt open heart surgery. Exactly, do you know what I mean? To give it a really extreme sort of a analogy.
And I think that's a misconception. There are a lot of employers and companies per se who just think if we just roll out the mental health first aid, we don't need to do anything else. But it's first aid. There needs to be more bolt-ons attached to it. Going back to even the supervision of the network. So then you don't have burnouts.
In terms of recording this, I mean, obviously we go out there and we deliver this first aid training, mental health first aid training, which we all agree is definitely at least at the very minimum to raise awareness around and break down the stigma and get the conversations happening. Once those conversations happen, how should they be recorded? Because I know we do accident books, accident statistics for physical accidents.
I'll tell you where I identified this problem. Myself and Matt Hartle went and done a presentation at Construction News for an award, and it was for mental health. Now, the truth of the matter is, we would have won that hands down, but because we hadn't retained any data, because we weren't able to say, right, that was that, and now that's that, we weren't able to quantify anything, right? We couldn't prove its value. But what you've got now is, firstly, on the MHFA, the new adult course, there's an app on there that you can actually record your conversations, what's going on in there, right? So you go into this app and you say, blah, 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 this happened, that happened. You don't mention any names, but it starts to get, the data gets collected. Further to that, what Lighthouse have is what's known as a wellness tracker. And a wellness tracker is, you go onto their website and you download this off the platform, and you input information into it, and it gathers the information and analyzes it to the point where I actually have a text every morning at 11 o'clock, because I've joined up to this construction help app, that asks me how I am, right? Now, it goes from like sad, happy, blah, blah, blah. Now, if if you start to deliver a trend of unhappy, it will get captured, and somebody will phone you. Somebody will say, "Look, we keep on getting this information from this person that they're strongly unhappy," and they will phone you.
Do you think this could be rolled out on a company level? Because obviously, I think that sounds amazing. It really, really does sound like. And when you told me off, I was like, I can't believe that thing exists, and it's such a great idea. I think to have it on a company level where that you're checking in on the app in the morning. Maybe it's I know we have when I had the scaffolding business, we had and it's a silly thing, but for recording faults with the vehicles. I'm comparing scaffolders and people to
exactly right.
But we're
defect sheet.
Yeah, I'm not that I want to call them defective either, but do you know what I mean? Like, to be able to log into an app every morning and just log where you're at, and then have that data anonymously collected, so we know the trends, and to have a function where we can actually intervene if there is a personal trend for one individual of saying they're not quite there on a regular basis.
I think that'd be brilliant. Practical, I don't know, but it would. But in a perfect world, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Like as are doing it as a collective, but from a company point of view, that'd be great. But we've also got to remember that you got the littler companies out there that
absolutely
no one's going to be analysing.
Well, the reason I made that comparison was I was with a scaffolding contractor this morning who we use this as well at Vertex when the scaffolding business, Strikesoft, great piece of software. Sort of end-to-end workflows for managing scaffolding projects from inquiry right the way through to design and everything else. You can also send out things like toolbox talks, safety updates. You can report faults. Great piece of kit. And there's others out there as well. There's I don't know if a Smart Scaffolding's got that functionality. And the Scaff Plan, the Australian, quite good friends now with Simon Boys, the managing director of that company. I'm just wondering if any of those, they're in the tech space anyway. Could they maybe make that as an addendum kind of bolt onto there?
Yeah, do you know what? I think there's it's an exciting time at the moment. And I say exciting, and it's probably the wrong word to use, but the fact that we're starting to get some exposure on mental health within the scaffolding industry. I mean, construction overall, but me personally, where I am, look, I'm a scaffolder. And charity starts at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. I didn't mean I had to speak about this all the time. We were looking at maybe doing something around carbon neutral and all that's massive in ask at the minute. They try to encourage scaffolding companies to reduce the carbon emissions. And I was saying to Ida, we need to get on. He's like, there's all sorts of other people, bus companies, this. I was like, I know, but I'm, it's bread and butter, isn't it?
Yeah, all we know is what we know, don't we? But and look, credit where credit's due. Steve Kersley from NASC yesterday, who let us come do a presentation there. And do you know what? They asked us to come in, and they just asked us a question. They didn't. They asked us, well, what should we do? They're actually asking us how to make things better. So fair play to NASC. Right?
I think the transformation, and it's quite within that organisation in the last 12 months, has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think Clive Dickin has got quite a lot to do with that. Yeah. I've never seen a CEO been so visible. He's out there. He seems to be everywhere at the minute.
Lovely guy.
And asking the question. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think he's a lovely guy. I was on Zoom with him the other day. He was lovely bloke.
Yeah. Even in the conversation we was having yesterday, he was asking questions, and he weren't. You find a lot of people out there to try and trip you up. He weren't trying to trip us up. He was asking actual questions where he wanted to get the information back. And at the end of it, we had a chat and whatever. And I got the sense from him that he's going to get something done about this. With people like him, Kerslake, Collinson, all the people now that are in NASC. What was that lovely lady name?
Kate and Joanne.
Kate, yeah. And everybody was there at that presentation yesterday. I walked out feeling on top of the world because I felt listened to.
It's buying in. It's just feeling that people are buying in.
Yeah. And it's all started. Let's give credit where credit's due. The one guy who, and I'm terrible with names. He's the actual. What was his name? We've got his name, but he's actually explained to us about. Well, do you know what? So what? This is how it goes, right? NASC will pay £150. Alan's name,
Harris.
yeah, Alan Harris. NASC will pay £150 towards training people within the membership group, right? In scaffolding. So, right, so you've got a scaffolding company, you're part of NASC, they will give you £150, 10 people, so £150 each, so £1,500 to train them in mental health first aid, right? They will give you
It's a
that.
statement of intent, that, isn't it?
Right. And they do that for all 500 of their members, right? So if they've got 30 companies, and I know it's a lot more than that, they're saying, we commit to give £150 per head for 10 people of your company, right? Now, I can train 10 people for that. So this training could cost you nothing, right? Cost you nothing apart from the wages, right? So how do we get around that? What we do is we go, okay, let's do it over 4 weeks, 3 hours per week, right? Because
and most responsible scaffolding businesses and NASC members certainly, they'll sit the lads down for toolbox talks pretty regularly. Anyway, so it's not kind of anything too far out of what you would normally be doing. No,
it's not going to affect you massively commercially. You're just going to go right. Every Tuesday for the next 4 weeks, we want guys on from 9 o'clock till 12. Right, they're doing session 1, then the week after doing session 2. Next thing you know, they've got 10 first aiders trained in the company, and it's been paid for by NASC.
Well, why would you not?
Well, that don't need selling. It's already sold. Further to that, if you're a company supporter of Lighthouse, you get a discount on the training anyway, or you get the training free, depending on what level of company supporter you are. We've got the help out there. We're just not using it. And until people know what people like Lighthouse out there offering and doing, you know what? We're banging our head into a brick wall. So look, now's time, and thank you for the platform. Thank you for giving us a chance to come and actually say, look, Lighthouse, training in mind, other people. We are there to help. Just take the time out, Mr. CEO, right, to value your people and give them a chance to learn this stuff, right? And
that's where Sam comes in.
And that's where Sam comes in.
Because I think you can really, especially having your background in sales. I did tiny bits of sales when I first left school, but I think people underestimate the kind of the value in that skill, because even as a mental health first aider, and we just used the phrase that we were buying, you're trying to persuade and convince people that these are, this initiative it's going to benefit your organization in the long term. Yeah. It's going to reduce absenteeism. It might lead to a more generally health conscious workplace, because I know we were speaking, weren't we, about the links between
to the point
physical health and mental health.
I don't even want to put the word sales into it. It's more logistics. What Sam's going to be there to do, really? This sells itself.
Yeah.
Right. What Sam's going to be there to do is go, right, I'm organising the time slots to do it, but I'm here to help you organise your people to get the money. It's not about selling it to them. It's already sold. Do you know what I mean? Because it's costing you nothing. What Sam's going to be doing is going, right, we've got slots available on this course in 2 weeks' time. Put your people on it.
I think what Ian doesn't realise is whenever he talks, he's selling, but he doesn't like to admit that he's selling. So
it seems a dirty word, almost.
That's what I mean, and it's not a dirty word. What you're doing is you're promoting what you're doing every day. You're going to get up in the morning and you're so passionate about something. Why would you try to put a bag on your head and then shout about it? So going back to me saying that he's selling, it's because when he's managing people's expectations, when he's showing that CEO, there are different avenues to look at, and there are way more costs than just that £150 that you're paying anyway.
Yeah,
you're just then leaving it on the table for that person to make their own mind up, and then do the logistics of, well, I know you're thinking about the wages of the scaffolder, so I'm going to deal with that objection for you. It's simply called objection handling.
Yeah. But it's the benefit as well. Do you know what I mean? You have to sell the benefit of and like if I think that maybe is an angle that hasn't been explored as much as it should have been, like the reduction in absenteeism, because the impact, especially for small scaffolding businesses, we were talking about that, maybe the non-NASC members that we have to try and bring into this conversation as well. And how would like apps like the one we've just spoke about, how could that be made affordable to the smaller companies? You are increasing profitability and making things more affordable by reducing absenteeism.
There's a report came out 10 years ago, the Stevenson Farmer Report, report, and it's basically it was the government commissioned this report to be done because we're losing something like £72 billion a year on sick days within the construction industry for people with mental issues, right? And so they've gone, whoa, look at all this tax we're losing. So they've put the onus on the company to deal with this, right? Which is why I thought it might become legislation to get mental health first aiders in. Do you know what I mean? But I honestly do believe that's going to happen sooner or later. However, what the government is saying is, look, we're losing 72 billion worth of tax or whatever you want to call it. You need to sort your people out. The construction industry needs to sort your people out. And you know what? I don't care how we get there as long as we get there, you know. But I think CEOs of companies now, and you know, I saw it with my CEO, Rob Lynch, who cared about his blokes to the point where he'd pay my wages to go and learn to do this, to be able to put the training forward. You know, he put his money where his mouth was, and look where we are now. I mean, he sold up and moved on, but the legacy is less massive.
Yeah,
because you know he started this for me. He gave me the freedom to do it.
Well, I mean, I delivered a hacky training course at Lyndon's Yard not so long ago, and when I went in, there was mental health first aid course materials on the desk from the day before. So, I mean, maybe that's a poignant statement. The fact that they had to train the guys on how to use this particular type of scaffolding, but they must have prioritised. Maybe I'm just fantasising here, but it could have been yourself actually was in before me.
I take it very seriously, and I'm extremely proud. I was honoured with the 2021 NASA Presidential Award for services to mental health. Didn't expect it. Was nominated for it and got it, and was blindsided. I didn't expect it. You know,
was this sort of a pivotal, formative moment at the time? You know, whether it was being addicted to drugs or at some point, at the time when you were in prison, was there a point where the penny dropped and you thought, I need to give back?
Do you know what? I wouldn't say in prison. There wasn't so much in prison, and I started to want to give back after I came out of rehab, and I actually saw, and it was nothing to do with construction at the time. I wanted to give back because I've never been suicidal, right? But I couldn't have been that far away, and I was homeless. You know, I had nothing. And then all of a sudden, somebody put their hand out to me and helped me. And I just wanted to give that back. But as far as a pivotal moment, I'd say that happened when I actually got clean in Hope House and wanted to give something back. Not necessarily in construction, just... There's a great film out there called Pass It On or something. And it's like, all I wanted to do is pass on what had been given to me. Because, you know... You only keep what you've got by giving it away.
Yeah, right? I heard a phrase this morning. Anyone who said money can't buy you happiness has never given enough away. Do you know what I mean? I think the same is true with advice, guidance, and all the rest of it. I think by helping other people, it's self-therapy in a way.
Yeah. It's like I had a conversation with somebody the other day. Is there anything we do that me doing something for you? I do it because it makes me feel good. Right, but I also do because I want, you know, if I've got a £5 in my pocket, I'd rather you have it, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask me for a £5, but I get more pleasure from that £5 by seeing somebody else enjoy it than I myself.
Yeah.
So, is any act that we do really not fully selfish? And it's a mad conversation to go on, and probably one we don't want to really touch on. But
not one that a salesperson likes to get involved in.
I do.
No, we don't give anything away ever.
I do what I do because I've experienced the feeling of actually seeing somebody recover.
Yeah.
And you can't buy that.
Yeah.
You can't buy seeing somebody go from there to there, go from being suicidal, standing on a bridge, to training people in mental health first aid and thinking, I'm part of that.
Yeah.
Right? And that the value that gives me is I can't put a word to it. And the work that we do at Lighthouse, watching people go from there to there, I can't put a word to it. Because do you know what? They're doing so much good. They're saving lives, right? They're saving lives. Training in mind. We want to be out there saving lives. We've got to keep the lights on, mate. We've got to pay the bills. And profit ain't a swear word. Right.
No, this is what I was sort of leaning on Sam for. I think, you know, you do have to be able to sustain what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you see so many people say, "Oh, well, I'm doing this," but like you should be giving so much away to charity and all the rest of it. Is like, well, should I? You know, you should absolutely support charities, but yeah, you know, you should be able to afford yourself a reasonable standard of living, especially in a, I hate to use the term, but like cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
You have got to value your time.
I want my little boy to be able to go to Disneyland, like everybody else does. I want to be able to have nice things.
But it shouldn't come at the expense of not doing something that you love doing.
No.
You know, I know we spoke about this a little bit, and I know we kind of pushed for time, but you said while you were at Linden, you know, you had a day job. You were involved in the delivery of this type of training and all the rest of it. You had a day job, and you know, in any commercial organisation, that's going to take precedence over the passion that you've got for mental health training. Now you're doing that for yourself.
Yeah.
There's inevitably going to be a balance in that way. You've got to, as you so often put it, you know, keep your lights on.
Yeah.
I just think more and more people need to get behind companies like Training in Mind, charities like Lighthouse, and, you know, by proxy, get involved with the charity is going to help sustain businesses like yours and help them make massive differences long into the future.
We can't thank you enough for giving us that platform to be able to come and say this, because it's by people like you that we're going to get the chance to actually get the word out there. Hopefully somebody out there today will have heard this and thought, you know what, let's give it a go. Let's have the first company coming to us from NASC and give us that first course, and let's watch how it goes, and let's see the feedback. I'll happily come back on and we'll look at the feedback, keep you involved.
And if you are that first company, please come on and share your story, because we'd like to hear more of this stuff. You know, I think, you know my passion around mental health, and you know, and the reasons why.
I can feel your passion, I think, mate. And you know what? It's a breath of fresh air. You know, I can see that you actually care, and thank you for pulling this together. We do really appreciate it, and you're doing such a good job. Fair play to you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been an absolute pleasure to have the pair of you on. You've got a long drive back to Birmingham.
We have.
Pint first.
Yeah, maybe. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Addict. Thanks for everyone who made this possible. It's been brilliant.